The first time it happened, I felt like my body was betraying my soul. His hands were on me, his mouth pressed against mine, and in that moment, I forgot who I was. I forgot I was a wife. I forgot I was a mother. I forgot that a man who loved me was waiting at home, probably setting the table for the dinner I had promised to make. I had spent years building a life with my husband, a home full of photographs, family routines, and Sunday morning breakfasts. Yet there I was, giving myself to someone who did not belong to me. My heart raced, my breath quickened, and as his lips trailed across my skin, a thought cut through the haze like a knife: I am risking everything. But I did not stop. Before I go any further, let me pause to say this. To all my subscribers, thank you for being here. I am so grateful for your constant support, your comments, and your encouragement. To all my new viewers and those who are returning but have not yet subscribed, I want to say a big thank you for spending time here with me. I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button, because that is the fuel and energy that keeps this channel alive. Please do not forget to engage in the comments, share your thoughts, and let me know how this story makes you feel. Your voices matter here. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. My name is Claire. I am an American woman in my late 30s, married for over 12 years to a man named Daniel. He is a steady man, the kind who believes in responsibility, who pays every bill on time, who never forgets anniversaries, and who tucks our kids into bed with the same bedtime stories I grew up with. We live in a quiet suburban neighborhood outside of Dallas, Texas. Our life is the picture of what most people would call blessed. A nice 2-story house with a white fence, 2 children who smile for school pictures, a dog who greets us at the door, and a husband who loves me without condition. But here is the truth I tried so hard to bury: perfection can feel suffocating. It started at the gym. I had joined a local fitness center with my best friend to escape the monotony of home life. That is where I met Ryan. He was different from Daniel in every way. He was impulsive, charming, and his eyes carried the kind of fire that made you feel seen in a way that was dangerous. He knew exactly what to say to make me blush, and when he laughed, I felt something stir inside me that I had not felt in years. At first, I told myself it was harmless. A little attention. A little flirtation. After all, I was just a wife who had been living the same routine for over a decade. Wake up. Make breakfast. Drop the kids at school. Work. Cook. Clean. Repeat. Daniel and I made love occasionally, but it was predictable, safe, almost scheduled. With Ryan, every word, every glance, felt electric. It was not love, I told myself that again and again, but it was something I could not ignore. The first time he brushed against me at the gym, it was accidental. Or at least I thought it was. But the way his hand lingered told me otherwise. My skin burned long after he walked away, and that night, I found myself thinking about him as I lay beside my husband. I hated myself for it. I prayed for the thoughts to go away, but instead, they grew louder. It did not take long before we exchanged numbers. One message led to another. Soon, I was hiding my phone, deleting conversations, making excuses about late errands. Every step deeper into the secrecy felt both thrilling and terrifying. I knew the line I was crossing, but I could not seem to turn back. The first time I met Ryan outside of the gym, it was in the parking lot of a small coffee shop. We sat in his car, windows fogged up from the rain, talking like teenagers who had discovered desire for the first time. When he kissed me, it felt like my body had betrayed my conscience completely. And when I went home that night, Daniel was waiting with dinner. He had lit candles. He had poured me a glass of wine. He asked me how my day had been, and I smiled, forcing the lie down into my chest, hating myself for the guilt that sat heavy in my stomach. But guilt has a strange way of disguising itself. For weeks, Daniel did not notice. If anything, he thought I was happier, lighter, maybe even more affectionate. That was the twisted irony: I was more attentive at home because of the thrill of my sin. I was living 2 lives, and no one suspected a thing. Ryan became my escape. When he touched me, I felt alive. When he whispered my name, I forgot about the woman I was supposed to be. But deep down, I knew I was walking on a knife's edge. Every time I looked at my children, I felt the weight of what I was risking. Every time Daniel smiled at me with those soft, trusting eyes, I knew I was betraying the very foundation of the life we had built. Still, I kept going. There is something about forbidden passion that blinds you. It convinces you that what you have been missing is worth more than what you already have. I convinced myself that Daniel would be fine, that he would never find out, that I could juggle both worlds without consequence. But the truth was this: I was building a fire that would eventually burn everything down. And in the middle of that storm, I was too lost in the heat of Ryan's touch to notice the cracks forming in my marriage. The lies started small. A late trip to the grocery store. A meeting that ran longer than expected. A phone call I took outside because the connection was better. Each excuse rolled off my tongue smoother than the last, but every deception planted another seed of rot in the life I had built with Daniel. What I never realized was that even the most carefully guarded secrets leave a trail. It was a Saturday morning when Daniel first looked at me differently. He was making pancakes for the kids while I was half distracted, scrolling through my phone. Ryan's name flashed across the screen, a simple text: "Last night was worth every risk." My chest tightened as I quickly turned the phone face down, but not quickly enough. Daniel's eyes lingered on me for a moment too long. He said nothing. He just handed me a plate and smiled, but it was not the same smile. It was as if he had glimpsed a shadow he could not quite name. The silence between us grew. At night, when I rolled over and pretended to be asleep, I could feel him lying awake. He was studying me. Waiting. I told myself I was imagining it, but guilt makes you paranoid. Every small question from him: "What time will you be back? Who were you talking to?" sounded like an accusation. Still, I could not stop. Ryan had a pull over me that I could not explain. When I was with him, the world fell away. We met in hidden corners of the city, motels with blinds that never opened, parking lots far from home, hotel rooms paid in cash. The passion was reckless and consuming. His hands explored me like I was a secret treasure, and I surrendered to him again and again. I told myself it was love, or at least something close enough to justify the madness. But cracks were forming. Ryan was unpredictable. He would cancel on me last minute, leaving me waiting in my car with makeup smudging in the heat. He would disappear for days, only to reappear with the kind of charm that made me forgive everything. When I tried to ask about his life, about where we were going, he would deflect. "Why ruin what we have by complicating it?" he would say. At first, I believed him. But slowly, I began to see the truth. To him, I was not a future. I was a convenience. And yet, I kept risking everything for him. One evening, after sneaking out under the pretense of a girls' night, I returned home to find Daniel sitting at the kitchen table. The kids were asleep, the lights dimmed. He had his hands folded, staring at the wood grain of the table like it held the answers to questions he was afraid to ask. My heart pounded, but I forced a smile, breezing past him, pretending nothing was wrong. "Did you have fun?" he asked, his voice low and calm. "Yeah," I lied, hanging my purse on the chair. He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "Good." That was all. No accusations. No anger. Just silence. But that silence spoke louder than any fight. It was the sound of trust beginning to fracture. The days that followed felt heavy. Daniel still loved me. I could see it in the way he held our daughter's hand crossing the street, or the way he kissed my forehead before leaving for work. But there was a new distance in his eyes. He was not asking questions anymore. He was observing. He was waiting for me to either come clean or destroy us completely. Meanwhile, Ryan became bolder. He started calling late at night, ignoring the fact that Daniel could have easily answered. He would text me during family dinners, and I would sneak away, my hands trembling as I typed replies in the bathroom. The more I tried to juggle the two worlds, the more impossible it became. Then it happened. Daniel found my phone. I had fallen asleep on the couch one night, my phone slipping from my hand. When I woke, it was gone. My stomach dropped as I walked into the kitchen and saw him standing there, the phone on the counter, his hands gripping the edge of it like he needed the wood to hold himself up. His face was pale, his jaw clenched, his eyes red. He did not scream. He did not throw anything. He simply looked at me and said, "Claire, why?" The word hung in the air like a noose tightening around my neck. My knees weakened, and I wanted to collapse right there on the floor. In that moment, every fantasy I had built with Ryan shattered. I was not a woman chasing passion anymore. I was a wife who had betrayed her husband, a mother who had endangered her family, a liar exposed. I could not find the words. My mouth opened, but nothing came out. Tears spilled down my face as Daniel shook his head, a broken laugh escaping his lips. "We built a life together," he whispered, "and you were loving someone else." That night, he slept in the guest room. I lay awake alone, staring at the ceiling, replaying every decision that had led me to this place. Ryan's face, Ryan's touch, it all seemed so empty now. For the first time I realized he never loved me. He never saw me as more than stolen moments. And I had risked my family, my marriage, for someone who never intended to stay. The cracks had become a canyon, and I knew the fall was coming. The morning after Daniel discovered the truth, the house was unbearably quiet. The usual sound of cartoons playing in the living room, the laughter of our kids, and Daniel humming as he made breakfast, it was gone. He had left early, without a word, and I knew he needed space. I had betrayed the man who trusted me more than anyone ever had, and now I was standing in the wreckage of my own making. But instead of retreating and fighting for what mattered most, I made the worst mistake of all. I ran back to Ryan. I met him at the same hotel where we had stolen so many nights. My heart was heavy, my eyes swollen from crying, but he barely noticed. He pulled me close, kissed me like nothing had changed, and whispered, "Forget about him. You are mine." For a fleeting second, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to erase the pain in Daniel's eyes by drowning in Ryan's arms. But even as he touched me, something inside of me broke. I realized then that Ryan's embrace had no warmth. His words carried no weight. I was not his future. I was his distraction. When I asked him what he really wanted from me, he smirked and said, "Claire, do not make this complicated. We are having fun. Why ruin it?" Fun. That was all I ever was to him. I left that hotel room with shaking hands, my entire body trembling from the truth I could no longer deny. I had destroyed the most sacred thing in my life for a man who never even loved me. I had gambled my marriage, my children's sense of security, my own dignity, for nothing. When I walked back into our home that night, Daniel was waiting for me. His eyes were red from crying, but his voice was steady. "I read every message," he said quietly. "Every lie, every excuse. I saw how you chose him over and over again." Tears spilled down my face, but I did not beg. I did not try to spin another story. I simply nodded, because everything he said was true. The fight that followed was not loud. It was worse. It was raw, painful, and filled with silences that cut deeper than any shouted word could. Daniel told me how my betrayal had shattered him, how he had lain awake for nights wondering what he had done wrong, how he had questioned his own worth as a husband. Hearing those words nearly killed me, because I knew the truth, he had not failed me. I had failed him. For weeks, we barely spoke. He slept in the guest room. We only talked when it was about the kids. I was living in the same house with the man I loved, but it felt like he was a stranger I had already lost. And yet, Daniel did something I never expected. He stayed. One evening, after the kids were asleep, he sat across from me at the kitchen table, the same place where he had confronted me weeks earlier. His eyes were tired, but softer this time. He said, "Claire, I cannot pretend this did not happen. I cannot forget it. But I also cannot let go of everything we built because of your mistake. I need to know if you are willing to fight for us, or if you are already gone." His words hit me like a flood. This man, who had every right to walk away, was offering me a chance at redemption. He was willing to give me something Ryan never could: real love, unconditional love, the kind that does not vanish when things get hard. That night, I confessed everything. Not just the affair, but the emptiness I had felt, the reckless hunger for passion, the lies I told myself to justify my actions. I poured it all out, shaking and crying, while Daniel sat there and listened. When I was done, he took a long breath and said, "If we are going to heal, it has to start with the truth. No more secrets. No more running." And so, we began the hardest journey of our marriage. It was not pretty. It was not simple. There were nights when Daniel could not even look at me. There were mornings when I woke up and wondered if he would ever forgive me. But slowly, through counseling, through late-night conversations, through rebuilding trust one day at a time, we started to find our way back. Ryan disappeared from my life completely. I blocked his number, deleted every trace of him, and promised myself that I would never again trade fleeting passion for real love. Because what I had with Daniel was not perfect, but it was real. And real love is worth fighting for. The day Daniel took his wedding ring off the nightstand and slipped it back on his finger, I broke down sobbing. It was not a declaration that everything was fixed. It was a promise that he was willing to try. And that was more than I deserved, but exactly what I needed. Looking back now, I realize that I almost destroyed my life chasing a man who never even wanted me. But sometimes, it takes losing everything to see what truly matters. Daniel loved me enough to forgive me. And I loved him enough to finally stop running. We built a life together, and this time, I chose to love the man who had been there all along.